Welcome to the Navigating Business Decisions series of videos where I'm explaining the report of a study that I did in conjunction with students at Kent State University in Ohio. We asked a number of business owners in Northeast Ohio about their perspectives on making decisions in their businesses, and this report is a collection of all of the information, a series of different kinds of analyses. So in the last few videos, I shared an introduction and some of the hypotheses that we started out with, the methodology that we used to make the study, some general topics that came through and themes, and then we explored the region and gender-related decision-making, and also some quotes from interviews that I conducted with 7 of the very generous business owners who wanted to add more to this study. So in this section, this is part 13, I'm going to be explaining some recommendations based on the results of our hypotheses. So first of all, this was a really exciting project for me because I wanted to hear directly from business owners how they go about making choices that impact the future of their businesses. And although I've worked with a lot of different types of clients in the past 10 years as a business consultant, there is still so much that I don't know, and I wanted to learn as much as possible from as many people as wanted to share their perspectives. So this project was a fantastic opportunity not only to help students with an applied method of working with businesses, but also to truly understand the mindset behind how business owners approach problems within their business, not just for growth, but also for managing what they currently have, even if growth is not necessarily their main goal, because it's not always a goal for every owner. So this here is a section where we talk about the hypothesis, results, and strategic insights. If you want to read this entire report, you can find the whole thing at laconteconsulting.com/Ohio-survey. And you can also find a 2-page summary if you'd rather not read the entire 64-page report, but those 2 are available on my website. And there's a series of videos in this series where I explore all of the sections in the report. So let's talk about the hypotheses. So first of all, we started out with the assumption that when you use analytics tools to make decisions, that's going to help increase your chance of having success in your goals for the business. So we thought that if you are utilizing analytics tools and forecasting methods and automation, that those would help business owners to achieve faster, stronger, and more profitable growth in their business, and also to increase the confidence level of making those decisions in their business. So what we found was that there were several leaders that said they do use advanced analytics tools. That was correlated with higher profitability, revenue growth, and confidence and adaptability. But not every business owner or leader uses these tools, and they may have a variety of outcomes depending on how much they're utilizing all of the resources available to them. We found there was a correlation between the tools that are available and the ability to make rapid, data-driven choices. As I mentioned earlier, we found that 64% of all respondents said that they do use gut feeling or intuition to drive strategic decisions in their business. That is one of the ways that they primarily use to make those decisions. There is a large number also of respondents that use a combination of both gut feeling and data-driven decisions and outside voices and opinions, and also other tools, which you can read earlier in the study. But we did find that intuition is a very widely used method to make decisions, and while it's not wrong to do that, it can be ineffective if it's not used in conjunction with other ways to measure outcomes and historic information, and really to get a perspective that's outside of just the information that you have in front of you when you're making those decisions. So these tools can help to make data-driven choices, but the technology is not, it can't speak for you. Technology is useful, but it can't be relied on as the sole source of making decisions. And when we trust technology to make the choices for us, we do run the risk of some pretty awful outcomes, as I'm sure you've seen, like where computers start taking over and removing humans because we make errors. That's obviously a pretty dark and dystopian way of looking at the world. However, there is a possibility that relying on machines to make decisions is flawed. And although humans, yes, we make mistakes, and even if we do our best by using intuition and gut feeling, we may still miss things. But when we can combine those two and use the technology as and just another way to help us assess the entire picture, then as leaders, we can make more informed, strategic decisions. So I think there's an important aspect of allowing technology to provide useful information and also using gut feeling and intuition to provide a sense that is outside of what's maybe measurable. But when we combine those two things together and then also get outside points of view and insights from our own team and from the employees maybe who aren't usually asked for their strategic opinions on how the organization is going to have to improve it, all of these things together can lead to a much more robust and useful set of decision-making processes that can then allow you to not miss important aspects of how your business could potentially be at risk. So we did find that, yes, tools are very useful, and yes, there is a strong correlation between companies where the leaders are using strategic decision-making tools and their ability to achieve their goals and success more quickly and with higher degree of better outcomes. So as I said, the vast majority of people who provided their feedback through this study did talk about gut feeling, and I think that that's a very important thing to notice. Many business owners rely on their own sense of right and wrong, and they judge things based on that perspective, which is obviously extremely useful. And every single business owner who responded has had success in their business to some degree with building something that didn't exist before. It is also possible that intuition on its own is not enough. So there are very useful methods of adding to that decision-making process by looking at tools that may be outside of your normal comfort zone. So we do recommend a strategic framework to help your company to be more agile and responsive to changes that happen, as well as informed leadership, meaning that you're willing to accept information and potentially change your decisions based on information that you're getting outside of your normal point of view. For example, from outside experts who provide an objective perspective, or from the rest of the leadership team who has not been as engaged, or from other parts of your company who have historically not been invited to have input into the decisions that are being assessed by the leadership team. So these are all, I think, a very useful combination of strategies to have a better outcome. Okay, so that was the first hypothesis. Using analytics tools can help to make better decisions and drive success. The second one was long-term planning will fuel growth. We started with the assumption that organizations that update and apply a long-term plan and take the time to really focus on future strategies and incorporating changes that are happening in their company on a regular basis. So it's not just a plan that sits on a shelf and no one looks at it, but it's actually integrated into operations and adjusted as time goes on and things change. We believed that that would lead to growth. So we wanted to see if there's a correlation between those two things, long-term planning and growth. And we found that it was largely supported. It wasn't always the case, but in our study, the results showed that there was a correlation. Businesses where the leaders are prioritizing and maintaining a strong strategic planning process are able to align daily operations with long-term objectives. Kind of makes sense. When you have a good plan, it's more likely that you'll get to your destination. So this allows leaders to better leverage technology and innovative ideas and partnerships with other businesses and organizations that could help them. And they can use those different aspects of their planning to anticipate changes. So they're going to be using the technology, innovation, and input from employees, and then also partnerships with others in the community and in their industry and beyond. All of those are sources of potential valuable information that can help to assess dangers and risks, and thus to make changes that will position you for a more resilient future place when changes come, because the changes just a part of life, right? We can anticipate them, we can hope that they don't happen to us, but eventually there are rainy days, there are disappointments, things to shift, and we have to basically be prepared ahead of time instead of reacting to it when it happens and not having really a path through that. So to stay ahead of these shifts, we just found that a lot of respondents answered that they either have a good strategic plan in place or they have a way to make plans with their leadership team that help to drive decisions that push them through those difficult challenges. Any company that's neglecting or just putting off or just not thoroughly evaluating a plan for the future is at risk of falling behind. You're not necessarily going to be able to keep up with your competitors, and also misaligning goals. So that was one of the themes that we saw too, that they're saying one thing when it comes to establishing goals, but operating in a completely different way. Found that the more disparate or different those two things were, the future goals compared to operational efficiencies, that created a lot more tension and more likely for businesses to not have as much success. When companies are neglecting to plan, they most likely are going to have more inefficiency and missed opportunities. But as I said, this is largely supported. It is a key driver to have a long-term planning process, but it is not the only thing that will create operational efficiency and growth. And of course, it doesn't mean that you should not have a strategic plan and not update it. It's not the only way to create growth. You can have business growth regardless of what kind of plan you have in place for the future. It's just that you can help to shape the future direction and achieve your goal more easily if you have a plan that defines where you're going. So yes, of course, companies can have overnight success and achieve things that are perceived as being kind of out of the blue or impossible, but those are so rare. And really, there is a lot of foundational decisions that are made prior to that overnight success anyway. So I would say that it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to make a plan, but it is important to consider that the plan itself is not the key. It's how you decide what you want to achieve as a business. The steps that you're taking to achieve that and to align everyone with that direction is more important than the concept of having a robust strategic plan. But if you have one that's actually integrated, that's the best of both worlds. So the most successful businesses maintain long-term planning while staying flexible enough to pivot when the market has changes. Flexibility is one of the most important things that we saw through this survey as well, because things change. We learned that through COVID. There's a lot of change that is going to happen, and the faster you can adapt and move forward and position your business for more success, the better your outcomes will be. The third hypothesis had to do with preparing for crisis. It's not necessarily the most fun thing to talk about. Oh, let's plan for an emergency to happen. But it is helpful. So again, this was something that we believed, if you are planning for how you will handle crisis in a business, you are more likely to be able to overcome problems when they occur. And you're more likely to have a better, stronger future path beyond that crisis. So crisis management plans are not necessarily common in every business that I have analyzed. In fact, they tend to be kind of, again, stick it on a shelf. We did it, check that off the list and move on. They're generally not a regular part of discussion among leadership teams, and certainly not among the entire organization. But I think they're extremely important because, as we just saw with COVID and aftermath from that, and different weather changes and emergencies and wildfires and all sorts of other problems that can quickly occur and completely change the way that you do business, I think it's extremely helpful to have some idea of how to continue to operate regardless of whether you're missing key people or whether you have a decrease in your ability to acquire the materials that you need to build your products, or different changes and shifts in the market make it very necessary to be as adaptable as possible. But also, when these problems happen, how are you and your leadership team positioning that as an opportunity to pivot and continue moving forward? It can actually lead to mistrust from employees and even possibly drive them away. Resilience is the ability to strengthen during a time of challenge or hardship, and then to emerge from that even stronger and better able to continue to move forward. Nobody wants to go through challenging times and pain, but that can actually create the ability to be stronger and more capable of overcoming even more challenges in the future. I define it as the capacity to adapt, recover, and thrive during times of difficulty and challenge. So you can maintain long-term sustainable growth and success despite any pressures that you might have from the outside. Companies with a robust crisis management plan are more able to navigate disruptions, and clear communication. Continuity protocols will minimize the financial impact and provide stability. Challenges are many leaders are having trouble coming up with a crisis plan, and there are many ways to do this, but it's not necessarily as complicated as maybe people tell you. You don't have to hire someone from the outside to do this. It's really just a matter of identifying what are some of the most critical areas of your business that if they did not function fully, or if there were no way for them to adapt quickly when there is a problem, how much of an impact is that going to have on your business as a whole? What kind of effect is it going to have if you're missing the most key people from each of your departments, whether they choose to stop working with you or whether something happens to them, or how important are certain aspects of your business, and would you be able to continue on if they were missing or not working properly? So once you've identified those areas, you can create some backup plans or cross-train people or provide systems that can replicate those same methods and processes off-site, or they're just different ways depending on the business of how you can adapt and become more resilient ahead of time so that you can just kind of switch to that second mode of operation and not lose as much in the meantime by trying to quickly react to the problem once it happens. We saw a strong correlation with this hypothesis that where businesses where the leaders have a crisis management plan in place are more likely to be resilient and to speed up recovery after they have a disruption. So this was definitely part of how we saw the answers from participants in the survey. The leaders who proactively invest in crisis preparedness with clear communication, risk assessments, frameworks, and scenario planning across the organization will build a strong foundation for long-term stability. Here's a quote from a management service owner. Once a plan is set, the most crucial step is effective communication to all employees. And I agree that communication is extremely important when it comes to staying ahead of crises and also making sure that you have a plan in place for the future, and certainly also how to utilize tools and technology to your advantage as the owner or leader. So we did find that to have long-term success, it is important to use tools to definitely plan for the future and to have some sort of crisis management proactive plan. And we did see that these three hypotheses were supported. So when you integrate these into a business, you will have a competitive edge. It is also very useful to understand how you are positioned within your market and how you are providing value that your customers or clients recognize and how they express that that makes a difference for them. I am always amazed at how little this is discussed in the marketing world or the strategic planning world, that it's the customer's point of view on how they see a difference in the outcomes from their point of view that matters more than any messaging that we might come up with from the business side. The customer's experience is really the most important part of everything. I have designed marketing materials and I made my share of mistakes, but one thing I've definitely learned, especially working with strategic planning and with proactive evaluations of companies as they're looking for positioning strategies, is that the customer's description of their own problem and how your services or products are helping to remove that pain for them, that is the most important way to communicate that message to other people like them. If you're looking for a way to reposition your company, it's so helpful to ask actual customers and clients how they describe the help that you're providing to them. So when you are able to put these three things in place that we mentioned from the hypotheses, you can anticipate changes and problems ahead of time. You will be able to almost look into the future. You can also adapt your strategies more easily, and you can execute decisively. You make decisions and know for sure that that is the best way to move forward. This is also what sets high-performing companies and leaders apart from those who are struggling during a crisis. And it's also very inspiring to those in your company when they see that you aren't waffling, you're not changing your mind during a crisis. You know that you have prepared for this and you have systems set up for duplicate ways to continue operating. If there's planning ahead of time, it can create a lot more trust from people in your team to look to you for leadership. So yet again, these are the 3 hypotheses that we basically turned into strategies. Advanced tools enable smarter decisions and faster growth. If you leverage data-driven tools, you can enhance the profitability and agility of your company. 2 is long-term planning fuels sustainable success, not just short-term, but long-term success. So regular strategy updates and clear goals can improve efficiency. And finally, crisis management builds resilience and recovery. Proactive planning provides stability and rapid recovery from disruptions. So I hope that this was helpful to you. Again, if you want to check out my website, you can find the entire report, laconteconsulting.com/Ohio-survey. If you want more of these videos, make sure to subscribe so that you can be alerted to future videos that come out. And we'd love for you to like this and leave a comment if you want to make sure this video gets seen by others and to interact and start a discussion.